Hello, everybody. CW here. Let's get back on the 400 Legend. Last week, I happened to check some websites, and I had found a place online that sells used or once-fired brass. I think it's actually called oncefiredbrass.com, but I'm not sure. But they had 100 packs of Winchester 400 Legend brass for under 25 bean sprouts. So darn cheap. I had grabbed a bag, I don't know, last year, a while back, and probably plenty. I don't even have the firearm yet. So, and if you remember watching past videos, I have I don't know how many boxes I have, five or so boxes of loaded ammo as well. So I really have plenty of brass, but for the cost, I figured it doesn't hurt to have a little bit extra. So I grabbed another 100 pack, 100 pieces, another bag. Shipping was very reasonable. And by the looks of it here, they've given me 101 pieces, because I've just gone through them here, and using these redding dies, I am resizing and depriming. And we're not going to really load any. We're just basically prepping this brass. But I wanted to bring you along because a lot of the modern calibers now are coming through crimped. I don't know if I'm going to do this. We've had problems with the focus before. Let's see if we can do this. The primers are crimped. They're not stake crimped. It's a total ring pressed around the primer. And they're crimped in. So what you end up with is a ridge that you need to remove. You need to either cut it out or swage it out. I always prefer swaging first, because if you cut it out, that brass is gone. If you swage it, you're just moving the brass, so the brass is still there. You can re-stake or re-peen primer pockets when they start to get loose, and if you cut this out with your spaceship tool or something like that, cut that brass away, you don't have as much there to repair down the road if you needed to. Now, not everybody does that, and I can't say that I really do a lot either. But our friend Ocean, Ulio, Ocean 374, did a really good video a time back with a tool to basically press and reform your primer pockets to bring them back to a size that made them usable. So I figured we'd just talk a little about that. I have two ways to swage brass, and two tools, I should say. I have the Dillon 600, which works very, very well, but it's specifically designed for 223 or 308. So I'll have to show you to see exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes it floats around a little. And then I have the RCBS tool that works with your press. So that's the one we'll do first, just to show you what it is and how it works. Maybe you've never seen it before. So let me get that set up. We now have all of our brass resized and deprimed. It's pretty clean right out of the box, so they must tumble it. Also, what I noticed was there was hardly any sizing. So what I mean by it is, usually you put a case in and size it. You can feel it whoosh, size the whole case. You can feel it slide right up the case, and you can feel that you're doing something. I didn't feel anything until I got right down to the bottom, and then you feel the primer coming out. But with the crimping, the primers are coming out with more resistance, so it's not easy for the primers to come out. So I don't know exactly if you're feeling it resizing the case or just pressing that crimped in primer. And let me show you this case that has no primer, because this one might show the crimp a little bit better, and it does. See it there? See the ring? It's all the way around. So it presses all the way around to crimp that primer in. Now, primers can be crimped in a whole bunch of ways. This is just one way. Some of the military stuff actually gets staked. So you'll see like 3 sides or 4 sides stakes to crimp that primer right in. And that really destroys the brass. It's really hard on the brass. This is much more friendly to the brass. And this is what you find. I find this a lot with a lot of cases, cartridges today. 350 Legend is one that you see that I saw first, and a lot. You see it now with 300 Black constantly, 223 constantly. Almost all the manufacturers are doing this. So this is something that has to be dealt with more and more. So maybe it's timely for newer reloaders or somebody who doesn't load so often. They're wondering why they have a hard time seating a primer. The primer's wrong or whatever. What's their problem? And this is probably it. They may not even realize that the pockets are slightly crimped. So you can go in with your spaceship. This is the spaceship tool, your deburring tool, and go in here and just give it a couple turns. And the nose is just about right diameter to actually cut out the brass to remove that crimp. See the brass pieces falling away? And that will open up that pocket and you can seat your primers just fine. So that is certainly one way to do it. I just don't prefer it. I prefer to swage. I prefer to move that brass out with a pin pressed in there. And I'll show you that now. But this is an option. This is just a spaceship tool. A lot of companies make it. Whose is this? This is made by RCBS. There's a whole bunch of companies that make these. And basically they're designed for deburring your case mounts. That does the outside and this does the inside. And that's what they're designed for. They just take that burr off the edge. They can be used for a couple other things. So let's get in here and let me reset up and get the RCBS tool that goes in the press. Stand by. Okay, here we go. So with this tool, you don't need a shell holder. What you're looking at is a pin that is sized for a small primer pocket. Again, all small primer pockets are the same size. Large ones are the ones that are different, but they're only different by their depth, not by their diameter. So 2 pins work for all normal sized or all normal cases that you reload for. So a 50 BMG and those are a bigger primer, but all the regular stuff that most commonly is reloaded can be handled with a small pin or a large pin. So the pin is in place in the press. Here is the die. This is going to take care of the top side. And all this is basically just a pin that goes inside the case and it presses on the web all the way down inside to push the web. So you're not pushing from the sides of the case. You're pushing from the base of the case onto that pin. And that pin is slightly flared. So the walls of that pin are not parallel. They're slightly flared. See what I mean? They're slightly flared at the bottom. They're slightly flared out to produce a nice flaring where your primer goes in. So it just sets on the pin here like this, and it gets pressed down from the inside, and it's swaged. It swages the primer pocket. So you got to set this up so your nut is variable. So we don't know where it's got to be to work properly. So we're just going to put this in here on a random setting. Run the ram all the way in. Screw this down until it touches. And the resistance you're feeling is not the die touching the ram. It's the inside pin right here touching the inside of the case. So we'll lock that down in position. We'll back this out a little bit. We'll give it a little bit extra. You don't want to go too crazy. So we're just going to go about like that. Now this is totally a random random setting, but we're going to check to see how it works. Lock it down in position. Am I backed out enough? No, I'm kind of tight for your setting. So all I did just now was I just put the wrench on the top here, and I tightened the nut down to lock the position of this pin, of this die in the press. Now on here, this is a little bit of a pop it off situation. So let's see what we've got here for a setting on this primer. Right, before I go too much farther, let's look at this tool as well. This is another tool that's designed to remove crimps. And basically it's just a cutter, and it just goes in the base of the case like so, and you turn it and it cuts the brass away, allowing the primer, eliminating the crimp to allow the primer to be seated. This is just a different tool, does the same job as the spaceship. It's just designed for doing this. And what does it say on it here? Let's see if we can get this to focus. This is an RCBS tool, and SM is the small size. So there's a small and a large. And it can't go too far in theory, because the base of your case would hit the flat on the tool here, and then the primer crimp would be completely removed. Again, not my preference. I prefer to swage them. So let's get back to our swaging tool that we've already started. Here's another tool. This is a tool, and I forgot who makes this, but this is a tool specifically set to check your primer pockets, and they're available small and large, and they check to make sure that your primer pockets are correct. Now that just went in there with just the slightest bit of resistance, so that's fine. Here's one we cut. Goes in there a little bit easier. This is just a little bit harder to go in, just a little bit easier. And you can see the big chamfer on there and the light chamfer on here. So you can see this one is just a little bit bigger. And that's what I'm talking about when you cut them versus swage them. You can swage them and overdo it, but it's easier to cut them and overdo it than it is to swage them, I find. So there we go. These are ones that are good, ready to go, and the checker showed it. Let me grab another piece of brass here that we've done nothing with. So here's a, we just primed this. We didn't do anything else with it. The tool won't go in. It won't go in. I could force it, maybe, but I mean, I'm pushing on a little bit and it won't go in. We'll go over here. We'll set it on the tool, run it up in the, kind of pry it off because it sits on there pretty tight. We'll take our tool, goes right in. So that primer pocket is swaged, and we didn't remove any metal. We just pushed it out of the way. Primer pocket is open now, and the primer should seat in nicely. So there we go. That's the process that I like to use. Video is getting kind of long. The Dillon 600 is basically the same thing. It's just a standalone. It's a press built in with the whole thing, and it just does exactly the same thing, a little bit different. You don't use your press. It uses it's a unit all by itself. And I have a plate on order to use it with the quick release here with the inline precision base. I just don't have it in yet. It hasn't come in yet. It's been back ordered, or I don't remember why I didn't pick it up last time. I think it was out of stock. But anyway, so I got to pick one up. So there we go. I'm just going to run through these and get it finished up and set them aside and be ready for whenever this rifle comes in. I got to call my dealer and see if I can light a fire under his butt. Maybe I'll accept a ranch rifle with the short barrel, even though it's not really what I wanted. It does make more sense with a suppressor to have the short barrel. I don't know. I'll have to do some thinking about it. I really have time because, we're what, 9 months from hunting season. So I got time, but I don't know. I'll think about it. Anyway, there we go. Thanks everybody. Hope this was entertaining, not too boring. God bless. CW out.